I walked in on my son making love with my brother's wife. I, 44 female, walked in on my son, 18 male, making love with my sister-in-law, 34 female, brother's wife, in a cabin, and I think they have been making love for a while. My brother, 37 male, moved in with us in February with his wife and 2 children. My husband, 44 male, and I have a big house on a farm. My husband is a farmer, and with everyone working from home we thought it would be a good chance to stay together as a family and for my nieces to spend time on the farm. I have 3 children and all of them live with us. The oldest is 18 male and the other 2 are 16 female and 13 female. On the day my brother arrived, I went to buy groceries with my son and he went to the pharmacy to get his gym supplements, and I bought the food. I saw condoms in my son's plastic bag. When we arrived at the house, 2 packs with 36 condoms each, so 72 in total. Didn't think anything of it, thought he had gotten a GF and wanted to be safe. Everything was fine, everyone got along. My sister-in-law and son would go on an early run around the farm. Everything seemed normal until last month when they left on their own. But I was up baking and I never saw them make any rounds around the farm, which was weird. I asked about it and they said they decided to hit the road. I thought nothing of this, everything seemed normal. My sister-in-law and son seemed to have a very good bond. Yesterday I was coming from a friend's house early in the morning. The sun wasn't up yet and it was little dark, but I saw that the cabin we have in the farm was open and the light was on. I thought maybe one of the employees had forgotten to lock up, so I went to close the door and switch off the light. As I got closer I heard people making love and I took a peek, and it was my son and sister-in-law making love. I didn't confront them. I was in shock. I still haven't told anyone what I saw, and I don't know what to do. Should I confront them? Should I tell my brother? Should I tell my husband? I'm so confused. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I'm sure they have been making love for a while from the condoms. My son was always at the house, never brought a GF. The morning runs around the farm. Do they go on a run? Or do they make love? The close relationship. Update. I walked in on my son making love with my brother's wife. As was suggested by many of the comments, I decided to tell my husband first and proceed from there. My husband lost it. He first thought it was a joke. We talked about the issue and we decided we should first talk to our son before telling my brother. We confronted our son with what I saw. He already knew what was going on as he saw my Reddit post and put 2 and 2 together. He didn't deny anything, he confessed. He told us he and sister-in-law have been making love since February last year. He was 17 at the time. My son said it started on sister-in-law's birthday party he attended. They got drunk and made love in a bathroom, and they have been meeting at hotels ever since and sneaking off at family gatherings. After my son's confession, my husband just lost it and told my son to leave the house and go into our condo in town as he didn't want to see him in front of him at this moment. When my son was gone, my husband stormed into my brother's room and told my brother everything. My brother lost it and packed his stuff, took the kids and left. He asked where my son had gone. He said he wanted to teach him a lesson. We didn't tell him and he eventually left. Sister-in-law didn't return. I think my brother might have called her or my son warned her and she is afraid to come back. Her things are still in the house. In all the screaming and shouting, my daughters heard everything and are devastated that their family might be ruined. They miss their brother and are afraid my husband won't ever let him in the house again. My husband hates all forms of infidelity to the core and has always drilled this in our 2 eldest children, that they must never cheat on anyone or be in a relationship with someone in a relationship. I know I did nothing wrong in this, but how will I ever look my brother in the eye again? He won't answer and calls or text. My husband said I should give him time to heal. My son has left the condo because he is afraid of what my brother will do to him and is now hiding at a friend's, and he won't tell us which friend. No word on sister-in-law. Sister-in-law was the one who initiated the first time my son and she slept together. She was the one booking hotel rooms, buying my son dinners and lunches. My son was even receiving an allowance from her. My 24 female boyfriend, 28 male, of 10 years has become incredibly secretive of his phone, laptop, social media, and car. I and my boyfriend haven't had any secrets until very recently. Since we began trusting each other, we had the passwords to each other's phones and social media accounts, and were very transparent about things that most people keep secret. About 2 months ago, he started not wanting me to go to his car without notice beforehand. I brushed this off as him not wanting me to see his dirty car. A few weeks later, I tried to borrow his laptop, which he is normally okay with, and he was livid. He told me I was invading his privacy, which I felt terrible about and apologized. A little while later, he was driving us to the store, and he got a text. I picked up his phone, so I could read it out to him. He snapped on me the second I grabbed his phone. I again felt really bad and apologized. This week I was thinking about this stuff, and my irrational side got the best of me, and I considered that he could be cheating on me, so I logged onto his Instagram on my phone. I looked through it, and saw nothing really out of the ordinary, except that he was following a lot of porn stars and fitness models, but I don't care whatsoever if he gets off to their Instagrams. I instantly felt awful about this, so I told him what I did, and he told me he was going to change all of his passwords. I asked him why he isn't okay with sharing his secret stuff with me anymore, and he told me he just didn't want to anymore. He very obviously was getting upset by the question, so I decided to probe into it any further. Is this normal behavior for a long-term relationship? Update: my 24 female boyfriend, 28 male, of 10 years has become incredibly secretive of his phone, laptop, social media, and car. So I found out he was cheating on me with an underage girl. Yesterday morning I after confronted him and asked flat out if he cheated on me. He admitted that he had received a blowjob from another woman. He said he blocked her on everything, but she kept creating Instagram accounts to contact him. I asked why he hid this, and he said he was ashamed and was looking for the right time to say something. Something in my gut told me he still was lying. So I snuck into his room and stole his phone while he showered. He forgot to take my thumbprint out of his phone. I looked at his most recent texts, and a few hours before he had texted an unnamed number. I told GF I was cheating on her. We might not be able to see each other for a while. If you need me, message me on Insta. I have never been so hurt by anything in my life. I felt my heart drop as I read the text. I looked at past texts and saw pictures of his genitals and her body and him saying she looked better than me. I moved on to his Instagram, and like a lot of people said, he had a second one he used to DM women. I found a conversation with the girl he had been talking to that started in August 2019 and suggested he had been making love with her since October 2019. For at least 1 year of our relationship, he was unfaithful. I checked the girl's profile to see if she was better looking than me and saw in her bio the name of a high school near us and class of 2023. My stomach turned and I had to stop myself from throwing up. He was making love with a 15-year-old girl. At that point, I had seen enough and decided to leave the apartment. I screenshotted everything and sent it to myself. I went to my friend's place where showed her everything. I felt so disgusted and guilty. A bunch of the people that commented on my first post spoke about how he groomed me, and I just now am realizing how right they were. If I hadn't let our relationship continue and told the other young girls what he did, it might have stopped him from doing it to other girls. I refuse to look back at his Instagram because I don't want to know how many young girls I helped him either molest or abuse in some way. I feel so gross for defending him. I also feel disgusted by the fact that I likely performed oral on him hours after he had slipped his genitals into a high schooler. That evening we began the process of reporting him, and hopefully he will be thrown under the jail very soon. I'm going to try to do what I can to right the wrongs I did with this, and am planning to get an STI test and some therapy to get past this and raise my self-esteem again. My 28 female dog attacked my stalker after he broke into my house. Now my sister-in-law, 32 female, says my dog is too dangerous to be around my niece, 4 female. Feel like I'm going crazy. This is kind of a complicated story, but I'll just get into it. I used to be in this controlling, kind of abusive relationship. When I finally broke it off a year ago, my ex started showing up places, trying to get me to take him back. Eventually, it developed into full-on stalking. He would show up at my work and took to just waiting outside of it after he was banned, leave notes on my car when I was at the grocery store, leave all kinds of flowers outside my house, and then stick angry notes on my door after he saw me throw them in the trash, wrote me all kinds of weird, obsessive emails and letters. I've had to change my phone number 3 times. The behavior escalated over time and got scarier / more threatening. In one instance, he started a small fire in my driveway, but the police couldn't get enough evidence connecting him to it. It was after that instance that I put cameras in my yard. I previously only had them pointing at my doors. I was horrified to learn that the police couldn't do crap about any of this until my stalker was caught doing something illegal, like breaking into my house, at which point I might already be dead. I decided I wasn't spending the rest of my life waiting for the other shoe to drop, so I got a handgun and a concealed carry permit, took some self-defense courses, and started doing strength training. I also looked into getting an attack dog, but after all the money I'd sunk into my other methods of protection, they were prohibitively expensive. So I went to my local animal shelter and got the scariest, meanest looking dog I could find. This is where Thor comes in. He's a 100-pound American bulldog, looks like he'd rip your throat out on sight, but is a giant teddy bear. He loves every person he's ever met, is incredibly sweet and gentle with my 4-year-old niece, enjoys other animals, and even loves the mailman. I just kind of accepted that he probably wouldn't do anything to protect me from my stalker, but it didn't matter that much, because having such a huge dog made me so much more confident. I brought Thor everywhere I could, and was working on getting him trained enough to be an emotional support animal, so I could bring him inside places with me. I absolutely would not do this until he was trained well enough to not disrupt a regular service dog. Last month, I woke up in the middle of the night to Thor whining. I was groggy and thought he had to go to the bathroom, so I got out of bed and opened the door. At that point, my house alarm went off, and pretty soon after that, I was face to face with my stalker. I started screaming and went running for my gun. Before I could do anything though, Thor ran across the room in full attack mode. The memory is blurry for me, but there was blood all over my living room and I remember my stalker was eventually able to escape, at which point Thor chased him outside and then came back to me. When the police showed up, they said Thor was a hero who'd probably saved my life. I don't want to list what they found in my stalker's car after they caught him, but I'm sure he was going to take me somewhere and kill me. It looks like he's going to prison for a long time though, so my nightmare is over. Pretty much everyone in my life thinks Thor is a hero, except my sister-in-law. She and my brother have a 4-year-old, and she says she doesn't want Thor around her child anymore. She says since Thor has snapped in the past, he could do it again, so he's not safe to have around kids. We used to see each other a few times a week before she decided Thor was dangerous. The way she words this makes me angry because Thor didn't snap. He saw a stranger break into his home, heard his owner scream in terror, and reacted to defend me, himself, and his house. Nothing about that screams dangerous around children to me, unless my niece is also going to break into my house and threaten me. This is also a very emotional issue for me, because Thor isn't just a dog to me. He's my safe place, my hero, the one who protected me and kept me safe when no one else could. I've also gotten increasingly anxious since this happened, and I can't go anywhere without Thor. I barely leave my house, pay to pick up my groceries from the store instead of going in, because I know Thor isn't allowed inside, and all my friends know that. If Thor isn't welcome in their house, I'm not coming either, although they are perfectly welcome to come and hang out at my house instead. I'm going through it, and I'm working with a therapist to overcome this. But I need my brother and sister-in-law's support. I think my sister-in-law thinks I'm just pouting, and that's why I won't just leave the dog home and come over without him. I don't know how to explain to them that the fear hasn't stopped just because my stalker is in jail. It's a lot worse than it was before. I've already suggested they come over and I crate Thor, but that wasn't good enough for her. What can I do to make her understand the situation better? Update: my 28 female dog attacked my stalker after he broke into my house. Now my sister-in-law, 32 female, says my dog is too dangerous to be around my niece, 4 female. Feel like I'm going crazy. I appreciate that I got advice from all over the spectrum. From people who completely agreed with me to people who completely agreed with my sister-in-law, and people who thought both of us had a point. It helped me see that the problem is more complicated than I thought, which helped me understand that my sister-in-law wasn't just being a jerk. It also helped me decide what things were and weren't fair to be angry about. I also appreciated seeing a few people comment making fun of me for needing my dog with me, and the majority of people yelling at them and saying I was acting pretty reasonably for someone who endured a violent attack. I don't want to be seen as someone delicate, and I'm glad that most people don't see me that way. Reading everyone's comments, I had this moment where I was like, yeah, they're right. I did almost got dragged out of my house and murdered just a few weeks ago. Who the hell are these people to say how I should act? That felt good, and I appreciated it. Anyway, the conclusion I came to in all of this is that, while my sister-in-law is well within her rights to protect her daughter, she went about it in a way that disrespected me, both as a friend and as a victim of a recent violent attack. Both my parents and her parents live locally and babysit all the time. She and my brother cold easily dropped my niece off with them and came to visit. It probably would have been a while before I even noticed my niece wasn't coming around, at which point I would have been in a better place and more understanding that she was uncomfortable with her daughter around Thor. Regardless of what some people said about how my sister-in-law and brother don't owe me anything and all their allegiance goes to their daughter, I simply do not feel that way. We were extremely close before this happened. I was always there for them and would drop plans to babysit my niece if my brother and sister-in-law needed a night to themselves. The very least they could have done for me after I was almost kidnapped and murdered is try to find some compromise. We went from seeing each other 3 times a week to pretty much not seeing each other at all. Even if they weren't okay with me creating the dog, they could easily drop their daughter off with grandma and grandpa for a few hours, so I wouldn't feel completely isolated. I also have a yard, so they could have come over with her, and we all could have hung out outside, while Thor stayed inside. I've been upset about this for a while, but wasn't sure if I was right to be upset until so many people echoed that sentiment. So I appreciate it. I invited my brother and sister-in-law over and tried to lay all this out without being confrontational or acting like a jerk. To my surprise, my brother and sister-in-law had no real understanding that I've been having a difficult time. They thought I was fine and everything in my life was more or less back to normal now that my stalker is in jail. I didn't get into it in my previous post, but during the year that I was stalked, I worked hard to not show any outward signs of fear. I even made jokes about having a stalker. I knew people wouldn't want to hang out with someone who was constantly going on and on about some bad thing that was going on in their life, and I didn't want to be that person who was perpetually in crisis. And more than that, I just didn't want to always be thinking and talking about having a stalker. I wanted to not think about it as much as possible. So I guess I might have come off as unaffected by the whole thing. I'm not sure if I buy that they didn't know I was going through something traumatic and that it was taking a huge toll on my mental state. I mean, I got a gun and paid for tactical training. I bought a home security system. I got active in self-defense classes and strength training, things that I previously had no interest in. Even if I wasn't walking around telling everyone how scared I was, I think anyone would have been able to tell. Plus, who just brushes off having their house broken into in the middle of the night? It seems crazy, and they don't seem so emotionally unintelligent that they'd think that. But both my brother and sister-in-law did apologize for being insensitive, and when I pressed my sister-in-law on why creating the dog isn't good enough, she eventually relented and said that it would be fine. It probably helped that the entire time they were over, Thor was asleep and loudly snoring in his crate. The paranoid part of me is convinced they just don't want to deal with me in a fragile state, made up an excuse about my dog, and are now just going to come up with some other excuse about why they can't see me. I invited them over for dinner in a few days and they're coming, so I guess I'll just have to see from there. I can't stress enough that these used to be my best friends, and I'm heartbroken to have not had their support. I've been trying to rely on my friends more now, and thankfully they've all been supportive. I'm really lucky that this happened during the pandemic because nobody is getting frustrated with me that I've refused to leave the house for a month. They're all perfectly happy to pick up Tekiat and come over to watch TV for the 5th night in a row. In other news, yesterday I left my dog at home and drove around my block alone. I was shaking the whole time, but I did it. I keep trying to remind myself that I spent a whole year fighting back, even though I was utterly terrified. I can't just lay down and die now that I'm so close to getting my life back. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit like, get subscribed, and give the OP any advice you have in the comment section, and support the original writers with upvotes. Links in the description box.